Si no hay nadie que tenga inconveniente, lo haremos en inglés porque sé que hay gente que el español va justillo. Okay, so I assume that everyone has attended one of our talks before, or is there anyone that haven't been to any of our talks? Oh, shit. Okay, let me explain who we are. Well, we are the Barcelona Java user group, or not? We are a group of people interested on technologies, mainly related with Java, but not only. We have done several presentations about other things, other technologies, not only about Java. Now we are arriving at 800 members, so it's very, well, we are so glad to reach that number. And we only have 4 years, so yeah, we are very glad about the improvement of the community. We are also always open to discuss new technologies or new ideas, so if anyone has any, I don't know, anyone wants to learn about something, just tell us, and we will try to find someone like Alex or any others that can come here and explain those fancy technologies. This is our links. Mainly, we are using Meetup because it's the easiest one. We try to maintain our main URL, but it's not updated as the Meetup. Also, we try to tweet regularly, and obviously we have the link to our conference, the Java conference that we do every year. This year it will be the 3rd edition, but I will talk about this later. These are some of the technologies that we have hosted before. We have, in Meetup we have 50, I think that 58 previous events, but we have more than that. And we have covered, I don't know, lots of technologies, very interesting ones, and others that are not so interesting, but yeah. About the Java conference that we try and we finally we do every year. The last edition, the 2nd edition, this past June, we gathered more than 300 people, 58 speakers in 4 parallel tracks in 3 days. Was, well, according to the rest of the conferences around Europe, it's not small, so it's well, we are also glad about that. We covered a lot of technologies, obviously the trendy ones, Java 9 and its modularity, and well, Raspberry Pi, Docker, Android. So we covered lots of topics. We received more than 100 of call for papers, and it was very, very hard to decide which ones we included in the tracks. But some good speakers and some good topics were out of the conference, but we cannot fit everyone. The next event is about asking for help. Just because this year we want to do a even bigger conference about Java, and we need people to help us doing lots of things. Just design, mobile app, talking to sponsors, talking to providers about lots of things. I don't know, helping to arrange a speaker dinner in a boat. I don't know, everything that is important to organize the conference. So we have Meetup organized without date and without place. So if you are mad enough to join us, so register to the event, and we will try to fit everyone with the date and try to talk with you about how can you help. We are more than 20 people already registered, so we are very happy about all these people. We also have to thank our sponsors, our regular sponsors for Ready and Manning for providing ebooks, JetBrains for providing IntelliJ or other products licenses, and of course eDreams to host this event in this fancy place. So thank you very much. So please, if you want to help us not only for the conference but for the regular meetings as this one, please talk to us. Ask if you want to cover any special topic. If you know someone that could speak also, if you want to speak, perfect. And please come, it's interesting to come. And if you don't come, please free yourself. Today's talk is about Microprofile and microservices. This is a bunch of companies doing something about microservices and trying to create or not a new standard. So Alex will explain more about this. And well, Alex is a regular speaker in the chat and also in the conference, and lots of conference. He's always flying everywhere. And I will not take more time. So Alex, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Well, today we're going to talk about Microprofile, and maybe the first question is if you know what is a JavaEE profile. And most of people usually say, maybe it's this or maybe it's that, and it's really, and it's the thing. Basically in JavaEE there is two profiles. There's the web profile and the full profile, and basically is an spec that acts as an umbrella of other specs. For example, if you are saying, I'm using web profile, it means that you are going to use, for example, CDI, the Servlet API, the JAX REST API in Java 7, if it's Java 6 not, GSP, and all these kind of elements. And if you are full profile, you're going to have a part of all the web profile technologies or specifications, also some let's say, useful technologies like Corba, CMP, and all these kind of things that are really enjoyable to work about. So Microprofile is exactly this thing. It's about creating another profile, which is not a web profile, not full profile, but something that only acts as an umbrella for all the specs that are useful for developing microservices in JavaEE. Well, yeah, I'm Alex Soto, I work in Red Hat, and yeah, I'm the author of Testing Java Microservices and Apache TomEE Red Hat. And the most important thing here is my Twitter, which is Alex Soto B, because it's the best way to approach me. Because if you can send me an email, but maybe it will take like 2 weeks to answer it. But if you send me a tweet, I will respond like in 1 minute or so. It's better, quicker than all of this. And well, if there is any question, just please raise your hand, and I will try to answer it. Just because Microprofile is something really new, so maybe some questions that will be unanswered. But this is what happens when you are talking about something really, really new. And basically, how Microprofile comes was a talk that you go to the conference and then you go to JavaOne, you go to Devoxx. At the end, you always meet the same guys from several companies, and we were talking how we were using microservices architecture in the JavaEE ecosystem. And we found that some problems were common, others not. Some problems were fixed in JavaEE 7, others not. And at the end, some guys decided that it would be great to have this microprofile. And basically, the companies are Payara, which is the company behind Glassfish. There is TomEtribe, the company behind Apache TomEE, Red Hat, IBM, the London Java community, Hammock, which is some kind of technology for creating microservices, and Java from Brazil. And all of the companies and the communities start to talk about how we could develop microservices in Java EE. And the good news is that in September 2016 we released the first version of Microprofile, which it just contains JSON spec, CDI spec, and JSON-P spec. So if you want to be compliant with Microprofile, you only need to import these 3 specs in your application server, and that's all. You are microservice compliant. As I said, this is the version 1.0, and I will explain later why only this and not more. Just in case that, maybe all of us has worked in CDI or JSON or JSON-P, but let me give you here some stupid example, but just to give in context. CDI is context dependency injection, which is like the dependency injection in a Spring, but for Java EE. But basically, you can create your class, you can qualify your class with an annotation. In this case, it's informal annotation. And then when you want to use, you just use inject. You use the qualifier that marks you which class you want to inject there, and then the CDI container will take care of injecting here the instance that you need for doing your business logic. In case you want to see how JSON JSON is the specification for creating REST APIs, and it's just like this. It's very simple. You simply need a POSIO where you need it with path to set which is the path where you want to this endpoint react. Also, in each method, you can add more deep levels in the URL, or also you can need to specify if you want to react to get, post, put, hit, patch, and so on. And finally, you set, which is this is informative at the end, but you need to set which is the content type you want to return to the core, to the client. And then you can also use annotations to get parameters and so on, and you return a response, and I mean that's all. It's really simple. You compare, for example, how you can do the same with Spring and BBC. It's more or less the same. You change path to request mapper and request, I don't remember, but I mean that at the end it's the same annotations with different names. And for JSON-P is JSON Processing API, which is for just reading and writing JSON objects. And you can create a JSON object using the JSON builder. You do a JSON builder, you begin an object, and you start to add the element and so on. At the end, you do build, and you have a JSON object. You can even read the JSON from a file or for any string. In this case, it's a string reader. You put here the string, you do a read object, and you get the JSON object parsed for you. And if you want to write, you use the JSON writer, you put the writer, you pass the JSON object, and this JSON object is serialized to the string that you decide. And this is what Microprofile 1.0 contains, just this. And probably most of you are saying, yeah, but I'm missing some of the things that maybe I will need for implementing a microservice architecture with Java EE. The first idea of Microprofile is that rapidly iterate and innovate. I mean that if you have been following Java EE, you can see that maybe every 3-4 years there is a new Java EE spec. And during this time, you are tied to this spec. And the idea here is not to release every 4 years, but release one feature every 2 months. So it means that every 2 months we are going to have a new Microprofile spec to be used. Then during these 2 months, it can happen that the things are, it's like, okay, all the people are really happy with this new feature, so we're going to maintain in next releases, or you say that it's a total disaster. Maybe you've tried and you thought when you designed the spec that this would be a really good feature, but then you see that it's not the case. So you just get dropped or deprecated or whatever. But this is the idea of Microprofile, not cycles of, or long cycles of 3 or 4 years, but cycles of 2 months. Also, it's really important for us, for the Microprofile, to build in consensus. I'm a member of the JavaEE spec, JavaEE 8 for the JSON P1.1, and it's really complicated to become a part of a JavaEE spec or the JCP. You need a part of a lot of papers, and your company needs to sign a lot of papers, and then you need to someone that you already know that suggests that you are a good member for the JCP and so on. This makes a barrier to enter to this wall. But in case of Microprofile, it's really easy. It's just Google Groups. So if you have a Gmail account, you just go there and you can start any conversation with the guys. And then we will start a discussion, and if the things have sense, there will be a plan, there will be a voting where all the members will vote if this feature should be added in the next release or not. And if it's accepted, then in the next release or in the next planned release, this feature will be implemented in the spec. So, I mean that you don't need any legal document to become a part of the Microprofile. And maybe you're thinking that this is in fact a split between JavaEE and Microprofile, because if JavaEE it's like a 4 years cycles and here is 2 months, it's obvious that Microprofile will grow faster than JavaEE spec. But the idea of Microprofile is not a split, but it's just let's play, let's do things, and the things that really works, let's talk with JavaEE expert groups to incorporate these new features in the JavaEE core, in the JavaEE core of the spec. And I think that is a really interesting thing, because you might think in CMP, everybody knows what is container management persistence, something that in JavaEE 1.2 and it was, well, it's still there, but it's like somehow deprecated in JavaEE 5. You know what is CMP?
Nope.
No? Nobody has worked in CMP? Oh, lucky guys. Well, CMP was something that was just, you know, someone in the JavaEE spec decided that they wanted to persist objects to a database, which is something like Hibernate or JPA, but it was a AGB, so it means that it was a remote calls there to storage, and you need a lot of XML files to configure everything work properly. There was no annotations. You need like implement like 2 interfaces. Well, it was just a nightmare, and sometimes it didn't work and you didn't know why. It was really complicated. It was something that the spec guys decided or thought that it would be really great. And now if you see all the, you know, this Spring versus JavaEE, all the people that wants to that defend that the Spring is better than JavaEE, it just says that because JavaEE has CMP. So yeah, it's just to know that yeah, CMP was just yeah, pain in the ass. Yeah. So, but at the same time, notice that we have Hibernate. Hibernate grows as a community. It was not a part of the spec. In fact, now it's not, but it's an implementation. But I mean that there was no JPA. There was CMP. At the same time, there was Hibernate that comes from the community. It was an open source community created by Kevin King and Emmanuel Bernard. And it was like this. They started to work. The project gains a lot of traction. And then someone decided that this would be great to have it in the spec. So it created the JPA spec, which is based on Hibernate. And then, yeah, there is Hibernate and there is the JPA. So this is an example of things that if they are doing in the community and not in the spec, it works better than just, you know, some people that are thinking about how we could persist objects on a database. So this is the idea of Microprofile, having, you know, the community who is the one who wants to make things better, not someone in the spec without maybe building the bubble tower or something like this. So, September 2016 is Microprofile 1.0. And now we are Microprofile is moving to Foundation. Basically, we are choosing Eclipse Foundation because it accepts Apache license. Basically, all the stuff in the Microprofile is Apache license, but Eclipse Foundation accepts Apache. Also, it has all the infrastructure for voting systems, for documentation, and so on. So it's decided that if it's accepted, I think that it's still in both, but maybe I think that it's still to be accepted, but it seems that it's going to be accepted by the Eclipse Foundation to get the Microprofile on their own umbrella. And then at the start of the year, we will have Microprofile 1.1. We're going to see what it's going to have, and then 1.2 and so on. Every 2 months, you will have a new Microprofile ready to use. So, how we started Microprofile? Maybe we said, okay, you created an application, a reference application, where you can start playing with it. But if you create an application, what you have is a microservice, just one, and this is not microservices. So instead of having a reference application, what we created is a reference architecture, which is a microservice architecture. And in this architecture, we have several services, all of them implemented with different providers. I mean, one with Wi-Fi Swarm, another one with Apache TomEE, another one by Liberty, which is from IBM, another one by Payara, which is the Glassroom. And it's conference application where you have sessions, you have speakers, you have attendance. The attendees can vote to the session and so on. And basically, the first is the Wi-Fi Swarm, which I don't know if you know what is Wi-Fi Swarm, but it's like Wi-Fi. It's the application server of JBoss. It comes from JBoss. And Wi-Fi Swarm is like what a Spring Boot is for a Spring. Wi-Fi Swarm is for Wi-Fi. So it's just a way of creating microservices in just putting some annotations, and all the magic happens behind the scenes. And it's just a Uber jar, but you can, at the end, you create a jar that you can do Java menu jar, and everything is started. And part of Wi-Fi Swarm implemented is the session service, which is what you want to do with a session in your conference. You have the typical CRUD operations for a session. Also, you can search for some session criteria and returns all the sessions that meet the criteria. You can search all the sessions for a given speaker and see how many speakers are or which speakers are for a given session. And information about Wi-Fi Swarm. Well, in average, when you create all your bundle with your Uber jar, the jar size is more or less 65 megabytes. It starts with 6 seconds, which is, that this is something that, well, before Microprofile 1.0, we make some kind of, or ask some people what will really interest or improve from Java EE to Microprofile. It was a startup time. And I remember that in some projects, the startup time was like 5 minutes. So you make your WAR, you put in your WAR in your, I'm not going to mention the application server. You put there the WAR, you start the application server, and after 5 minutes, you're there, your WAR is deployed. So now it's 6 seconds, which is an improvement. It uses, the heap is more or less 40 megabytes. It means that the runtime takes only 40 megabytes, and the rest of the RAM is just for your application, which is quite good. It uses, as I said, the Uber jar with a bootstrap layer. Basically, it's the same approach that is using Spring Boot, which is they have a jar, and inside the jar they put in some more jars inside, and a bootstrap layer, which when you do Java menu jar, instead of running your main class, it's running their main class, which is the one who is in charge of starting everything. And in case of Spring Boot, starting Undertow, Tomcat, or Jetty, and in case of Wi-Fi, it's just starting the low infrastructure of Wi-Fi. Also, it has fractions, which means that there's something really interesting that is implementing Wi-Fi Swarm and then implemented in other application services, is that if you take Wi-Fi and you boot Wi-Fi, what you're going to have is all the services of Java that implements Wi-Fi. So it means JMS, It's the full, you're going to have a core server, you're going to have the CDA container, the AGB container, the separate container, everything there running. But what you can do with Wildfire Swarm is creating a fraction. It means that you can say, okay, I only want to use JAX-RS, just JAX-RS. I don't need AGVs, I don't need CDIs, I don't need JPA, I don't need anything, nothing of this, just JAX-RS. And then what it does is just take the runtime of JAX-RS. So your, let's say your final jar is less in the space, and also it boots even faster because you don't need to start all the services. And yeah, you also have out of the box all the Java EE because it's based on Wildfly, and also the Wildfly features that you have like OGI, or in case of Wildfly it's modules, which is something very similar to OGI. So you get all the things that you have in Wildfly also in Wildfly Swarm. And also, and this is why Wildfly Swarm was chosen as one of the technologies for Microprofile, is that non-EE things like service registry or service location, circuit breaker, or even a way to configure everything in a, yeah, let's say in a way that Devoxx feels more comfortable than just putting XMLs there, and you know, it's always quite complicated. The next one is IBM, which is a surprise that IBM decided, you know, to put efforts on Microprofile. It's a good surprise in this case. They implemented this, the voting service, which is you have a session and the attendees can vote if this session is great or not. So you have the CRUD applications for attendees, for key attendees and so on. You can rate a session. You can update a session. You can see all the sessions votes. And of course, you can see you can calculate the average rating of a session, and finally get all the votes by an attendee, so you can see if this user is engaged in the conference or not. And what they are using is Liberty. Liberty is this. It's like a split of WebSphere. And there is not much information about Liberty. I went to the website and so on to see the feature, and the machine is not very good, but the jar size is 35 megabytes, it's a startup in 7 seconds, and the heap size is 21 megabytes. So it's quite, also it's pretty similar to the Wi-Fi Swarm. In this case, the UR jar they're doing is quite different. What they're doing is just creating a UR jar, and when you do Java in a jar, they are unzipping everything in a temporal directory and running from there. In the other cases, everything is inside the jar, and you can run it inside the jar because you have the bootstrap layer that knows how. In fact, this bootstrap layer creates some class of loaders to be able to read jars from a jar, which is something that you cannot do it by default, but if you do some kind of class of loader things, you can do. And in this case, what they are doing is just unzip it and running as any other application. You have all the features of Liberty plus Java EE because it's based on WebSphere, so you can use everything that you know from Java EE. There is extras for production, which I checked it in the web. There is no information about which is this extra for production. Yeah, extra for production. I suppose it's more or less the same that offers Wi-Fi Swarm. The next one is Payara. Payara is the company behind Glassfish. Well, yeah, let's say because Glassfish now I don't know what's going to do Oracle, but yeah, Payara, let's say that they are improving Glassfish. They implemented the schedule service, which is basically how you schedule a conference, where you have the CRUD, or for a venue, you set a venue and you get all the sessions that are in this venue, which are the sessions active by time. For a day, you can put a day and they return all the sessions for the day. And basically, Payara is when you bundle the 33 megabytes, 5 seconds to start up, and he puts just 20 megabytes. So it's exactly more or less the same. They're using a UR jar as well, but instead of having a Maven or a Gradle plugin, they are doing some CLI application. So it's quite annoying for if you're using Maven because you need to use Maven exec, which is not the best plugin in the world. So, but you can, at the end, you're going to do is Java minus jar. You pass your jar there, or the path of your jar, and then they do some manipulations on your jar, and at the end, you have a your jar with everything inside. By the way, this is something that they admit that it's not the cleanest solution, but they say that they are working for improving. It's a glassfish, so everything you have in glassfish, you also have it in Payara. And one of the things that they have is that has a cluster for CDI. This means that you can send an event, a CDI event, and all your cluster receive this event. And they are using Hazakas for this. It's something that all the other solutions doesn't have it, but Payara have. Notice that Payara, I don't say it, and I remember that Liberty also has this feature of Oracle Swarm that you can select which parts do you want to create, and then they just boot only the parts of JavaZone and CDI or whatever. In case of Payara, always everything is bootstrapped. There is no these module things, and this is something that they also said that they're going to improve. And finally, there is TomEE. TomEE is the company behind Apache TomEE, which implements the speaker service, where you can register as a speaker, so you can have the speaker CRUDs, the search, and well, Apache TomEE is just size of 35 megabytes, 3 seconds to start up, which is the fastest one. And the Hiku path is 75 megabytes. It also has the US jar with bootstrap layers. It means that you create your jar or WAR file, and you can do jar in a jar, and it starts without any problem. And one of the great things about Apache TomEE is that it's a Tomcat. So it means that if you are using Tomcat, you can use Apache TomEE because it's exactly the same. It's a Tomcat plus some jars to be JavaE compliant. So you can use TomEE with any Tomcat application. It's going to work. The configuration files are exactly the same. So you can use the same knowledge for TomEE. And at the end, the examples are here. This is where you can find this example. And I can, let me see if I can move it here. This is an example. You can see here all the services, and even there is one which is the web application, which basically is an Angular 2 application, but it's just a front end for doing all these things. And here you can see how to run all of them. And at the end, the code is, it's just you can see that this one, for example, you can see this is the. For the organizing thing, this is the Liberty. Yeah, this is the Liberty one. This is how you configure Maven to make a jar with all the Liberty runtime inside. And if you check here the code, you will see that it's just for version 1, just here. Just JavaEE. And in this case, although this is persistence, it's all in memory, because we have not talked about persistence. We said that there's only JavaRest, CDI, and JSON. So you can see here that there are some other services that start playing on how persistence should be treated. And should be treated in NoSQL and SQL databases, not just for the SQL database. So if you want to take a look, just go here and you see the application, you can deploy it and play it a bit. And the next feature that's going to be implemented is persistence. We have seen that there is no persistence, so the next thing to be improved in Microprofile 1.1, it's not clear if it's going to be JPA or what, but the idea is that it's not necessary to be JavaE project or spec, it could be anything. Security via JWT, which is called JOT. But basically, this is JSON Web Token, which is a token that you can send from client and server, and you have there all your credentials, wherever you can encrypt it and so on. So it's implementing security using this. Some way of a standard configuration of all the services. At all now, if you see all the services needs some. You need to specify a port. So in Payara you do it in one way, in Wi-Fi swarm in another way, and so on. So it's a matter of standardizing all these things. Also support for OpenAPI Swallower. This is another feature. It's required by the users. Standardize the service discovery. So how you can, you register some service somewhere. You need to know that the service is there and is available. How to do it. And caching. It's also an important thing that the Microprofile will take care of. So probably you're saying, what is my future? Because I mentioned here some, but maybe you're thinking of circuit breakers, maybe about, I don't know, load balancing or client load balancing. And the good news is that, as I said, is that you can go to the Google group and just start their conversation and see how it's going on. The last thing was, if it's security with JOD, it's going to be using JWT or Nimbus, or which implementation is going to be used. What I mean with this is that it's not a requirement to be in a spec. You can go there and say, hey, I've seen that this circuit breaker library is really good. How about incorporating in the Microprofile standard? Something like this. It's just, and it's open for everyone. And I think that it's a good way to be involved in the Java EE as well, in this way. And also you have here, this is a Microprofile evolution, which is like a repo where you can open issues and just say, I would like to see how to implement circuit breaker, and then you can also provide a pull request. So if it's a question, someone will answer it, and if it's important, it's going to be adapted or incorporated into Microprofile. But if you can also send a pull request with, I think that it would be great to have circuit breakers or client load balancing in this way. And it just sending the pull request, and this is like a sandbox to play a bit with all the technologies. Also, there is a website which is microprofile.io, and here you can join. And also there is some forms to be filled. They ask you something like, are you interested in I don't know, service discovery, in caching, or whatever? And you fill out everything, and then according to these results, the next releases will be prioritized. So let's recap all the things that we have seen. The first one is that for Microprofile, the community is the most important. So don't be shy. I mean that you can go there and ask things. I mean that you might think that it's just stupid, but sometimes the stupid things is the thing that moves forward. You say, yeah, this may be stupid, but then nobody has thought about the stupid thing. Everybody thought about implementing really great things and fancy things, and yeah, you put here an annotation, and then a lot of magic happens, but nobody takes care of the stupid things that maybe are also important. So just come there and ask your questions, or provide your view of something. It's important to know that it's for EE and not EE projects. So, as I said, if you think that, for example, Hystrix is a really good circuit breaker, you can just say, it would be great to have Hystrix integration in Microprofile. It doesn't matter if it's not an EE standard, because at the end, it happens like Hibernate. If someone says, Hibernate is great, and it will be then promoted to JPA, then you can have exactly the same for any other technology. You can have your jar, which is something that is just one open source, and then be on a standard and be like the reference implementation. And just is that it's not on a split. I mean that you're not going to have an EE and let's say web profile, full profile, and in another way you will have Microprofile. As I said, the final idea is just merge always. Just this Microprofile is something to iterate rapidly and say if we are in the good path or not. And now let me show you, I mean that you've seen that I don't have a lot of things to show because it's just released in September and it just checks the REST, CDI, and JSON. So I'm going to show you how to use workflow swarm for Microprofile, and then if you, I mean, workflow swarm is really big in terms of features. You can do circuit breakers, service discovery, as I said, caching, configuration, and so on. So you can start playing at home, or you can prepare any session about specifically for workflow swarm. But now what I'm going to show you is how to implement a microservice using Microprofile and using Wi-Fi Swarm as a base. But you will see that it's really easy and short. Yeah, this is a project which is Maven. It's empty. I just created the form to have something to start. The first thing is that you need to create some properties, basically to set the Java version, which is Java EE. So if you Java 8, so if you are not using Java 8, just forget about using Microprofile. And basically, what you need to do is set the version of Wi-Fi Swarm, the compilation level and the target, and something really funny that I don't understand how at 2016 you still need to set that don't fail if there is no web.xml. It's really funny because it's like 10 years ago this requirement was removed, and yeah, Maven still asks it. I think that it's just to say, just to remember you that Java is great because it's improved. So you every time you say, oh yeah, now I don't need to configure all these XML files. Thanks Maven for reminding me. It's the only thing that I can think about this. Then the application is WAR. And I wouldn't say you a jar, you need to put the application in a WAR. Because at the end what you can create is a WAR file that you can deploy on your Wi-Fi. So if you say, yeah, I like Wi-Fi Swarm, but I don't want to use this Uber jar, just want to take that WAR and put it in my Wi-Fi, then you can, you put it as application WAR, and it's the same thing as you do. And finally, you have all the dependencies. Basically, the dependency management here is a bomb, where you just fix all the versions that you want to use of all the modules of Swarm. Here the name you can call it DCN jar, for example. This is the plugin used for creating this Uber jar. Basically, when you execute this plugin, it's going to take your code, all your dependencies, and all the fractions that you have defined up, and put it all together and creating this big jar. And then you define the Java API. This is something that's going to change in the near future, because there is no Microprofile API yet. And this is basically because there is a level problem, because you're going to use the Java name, because it's not something from Oracle. So probably you will see that group ID is going to be like io.microprofile, and the artifact ID will be microprofile or something like this, because yeah, you can use Java. And finally, you're defining here the fraction. In this case, I'm using Microprofile fraction, which means that it's going to take CDI, JXRS, and JSONP. But I will show you how you can improve it. In this fraction, you could put something like, I want to use a fraction of JXRS and histories. And then Wi-Fi Swarm in build time will take care of bundling all together and registering everything correctly. But as I said, since we are in Microprofile, that's good. And then that's all. We can go here and we can create our Java class, which is going to be org.message, for example, dot go for source. We have. Then it's just a matter of doing in which path you want to react. I'm going to do the root path. And this reminds me something, then I need to stop this. And then I can say that I want to read to get, and I'm going to return hello. And as I said, finally, I can say what I want to produce. It's media type.text. And that's all. This is just for defining a REST API. Just 3 annotations, nothing else, just one class. So really, pretty similar, right? Because you can see when we're using Spring and MVC, for example. And the only thing that now we need to do, as you see that I'm not doing anything, is clean package. And then this is where all the magic happens. Okay, then I can go to wall, target, and maybe you can, and then do a Java menu jar. We say PCN chapter. Wait, we call it aquí. Java menu jar, and then notice that, well, I don't know if I could react. Notice that now I have two things. The bcnjack.var, this is something that I could take this var, put it in Wildfly and into Word, or I have the bcnjack menus, swarm.jar, which is all the jar, the Uber jar with everything inside. So you can do bcnjack swarm, and everything start. Notice that it's starting well. Well, it is the CDI container, and that's all. We have our first microservices running. Yeah, well, now it's deploying, and I can do something like I can go to localhost 8080, which is the default port, the default way, and remember that we have put it in the root, and I can go send, and I return hello world from bcnjack. Pretty simple, just one class, everything is done for you, automatically. But then, probably, some of you will say, oh yeah, this is great. So it means that I have a jar, that I do Java new jar, and everything's there, and the server is there with this one class. But maybe you say, and how I test this? Because you can say, yeah, I can use a unit test, but at the end, this is a very simple case. But if you're using CDI, you want to be sure that the CDI injects the correct bin, and not another bin that maybe you notice that it's conflicting with another one. Or if you are using, for example, in this case it has not much sense in the Microprofile, but JPA, have you notated correctly all your entities with JPA notations? So you need to do at the end a test, let's say a real test, something that you boot up everything, you run your test, and you stop everything. And to do this, we're going to use two new dependencies. The first one is the Arquillian dependency, which is it's not the default one. It's the Wildfly Swarm Arquillian extension, which now I'm going to explain what it does. And finally, a new dependency. I don't know if you know what is Rest Assured, the project. You need to take a look because it's really great project for testing REST APIs. Now we're going to see it. Then I'm going to write the example. Notice how simple it is. Just I'm going here, I create a package, PCNjack message dot hello source test. I have here my test. The first thing that I need to do is just change the runner to Arquillian. Changing this runner to Arquillian, it will make us is that before executing the test, your class and all the fractions are going to be packed inside a jar. So it's going to create the Uber jar dynamically. Then it's going to execute Java menu jar, blah, 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 blah. And it will wait until your service is up. And when it's up, it's going to start executing your test. So it means that you don't need to use any Maven plugin or anything to just say, I'll start the server, execute the test, stop the server. And if you want to use it, or you want to test in your IDE, it's like, oh, yeah, it's true, I need to run it manually and so on. In this way, you are automatically everything. The package thing, the starting server, everything is in your JUnit. The next thing to do is just say, creating a default deployment, which basically means take all the classes and all the fractions and put it together. We're going to use the stable false, which means I want to use this something. It's like I want to use this class outside the container. If you put this table true, it means that the test is executed inside the container with all your code. And this means that in your test you can use the feature that gives you the container. For example, injecting beans, using transactions, and so on. But in this case, what I want to do is no, don't put the test inside the container, but just execute from the IDE virtual machine. At the end is in which virtual machine the test is executed. If it's executed in the server virtual machine or on the IDE virtual machine. And finally, I think that they need to set the type. In this case, since we are using a war file, we need to take type 1. And that's all. Just with these two annotations, we have all these boilerplate tasks of creating the jar, starting the server, and stopping the server, done. Just with this. And then it's just a simple unit test, which we can say should return hello. And now it's where rest assured comes. I've said that this test is executed outside the server, so what you want to test is like I've done with Postman, that just I put there HTTP localhost 8080 and it returns something. So I would like to do this thing as well. So you can use the URL connection class and start doing low-level operations, or you can use rest assured. Which basically rest assured offers you a static class, which is rest assured, and then you need to put here to get something from the server. In this case, I'm going to do a get, because the protocol is get. If you want to do a post, you have post. If you want to do put, you have put. In this case, it's get. And I do when. I do get, and by default, rest assured takes localhost 8080 / which is where we configured our service, in localhost 8080 /. So I don't need to do anything. If not, notice that get method have a string path and so on, so you can put here get, / blah, 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 but in this case it's not necessary because it's the root. Then, body, I want the body contains string. This is the matcher that comes from Hamcrest. I think that it was hello world from I'm not going. I'm going to make this thing a bit better. This. So I do this, and basically this is going to start a URL connection using the get protocol, get what comes from the server, and assert that contains this string, which I think that is correct. Wait, no, it's not correct. Here. And then I can run the test. It's going to take a bit of time, because notice that you are doing all the things that you are doing when you are building the jar, which is creating all the fractions, all the classes, putting all the jars and so on. But, I mean, yeah, starting the server, notice that now it's starting the server. It's also creating, all the things, deploying, waiting that it's up and running. Now the server is that. Now it's creating the URL jar, now we deploy it, and it's green. And you can see here how the server is started. And finally, let's say that it's ready, and this test is run. In this case, what I'm doing is just, as I said, the same thing that I've done here in Postman, I've done here. If you want to see it, we can debug. This is something that, where I said that is the great thing about Arquillian, that if you're doing Maven, how do you debug something? You need to start manually your server, and then attach with JPDA or I don't know what, start debugging. In this case, you don't need to do anything because it's just a simple JUnit file. Then, I mean, well, it doesn't come this. If you want to do something more interesting than just playing with Microprofile, you can go to the Wi-Fi Swarm website. There is a generator. And then here you have the group ID and the article ID. And here you're going to start saying, okay, you want to use JAX-RS with Zipkin, for example. Zipkin is that project that is for distributed logs. Or CDI JAX-RS enhancement, or JAX-RS with JSONP, or JAX-RS with validation, and then you choose whatever you want. For example, you can choose CDI or JAX-RS with JSONP. And then you can use also Arquillian, and you can add streaks. And you say, okay, this is my fractions. I mean, my server, I only want to have JAX-RS container, Arquillian for testing, and streaks for circuit breaker. That's all the things that I want. You do generate project, and you have here your zip with your project, with your POM, and if you open the POM, you see that now things are a bit more complicated because you have a lot of dependencies like JAX-RS JSONP, which is the fraction of JAX-RS, the one from Arquillian and the one from streaks. And now if you import this project with your ID, you will see that all the dependencies of the streaks, of JSONP, of JAX-RS, and everything is downloaded. And this is about debug. Now we have the debug point here, and I can go in the Postman, I can run it and see that it returns hello from BCM JAG because the server is up and running. And now I can run the test, and again, it's going to be. So, yeah, that's all for the Microprofile. I know that maybe for 1.0 it's not a lot, but there is not a lot of things because what we want is involve all the community. So if we come in 1.0 with 7 or 8 specs, you will say, okay, everything is resolved. But if you see that there is only 3, I mean that the more minimal ones, now it gives you the freedom to propose any new technology in the Microprofile spec. I don't know if you have any question. Yeah?
Given that this is like an open spec, as it were, why do we bother keeping JAE alive? Why do we bother servicing? It seems to be like a giant bank that needs breaking up. Why are we pushing? Why are we bothering to improve Java EE when we have an open spec that we just break away from the Java EE?
Yeah, in fact, it's not a break. I mean, it's just like a playground where you can see what works and what not in the microservices.
But why should we bother servicing? If I was cynical, I would say that this is a community way of servicing the Java EE platform. If I was cynical.
Yeah, but
I'm a victim of, say, container management systems, by the way. So
oh, yeah.
I don't like JE spec. I like the bits. I don't like the idea of this
Exactly.
collected. So why don't we break away from that? Because Java is bigger than this now.
yeah, well, it's not a break. I mean that it takes the things that works in Java EE and add new things.
But if eventually that this is sitting as a kind of implementation on Java EE, as it moves further along, it's going to find
Frictions?
big frictions. I would have thought big frictions.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but this also started before Oracle is pushing and again with Java EE. I mean that Oracle stopped supporting Java EE like 2 years ago, and that from this it comes the initiative of creating something. So if it's going to be fractions or not, I don't know. Maybe yes or maybe not. I think that the idea, or at least the idea here, is just contributing with Java EE. So we're going to implement something that it's not in the EE spec, and if it works, we're going to the expert group that is in charge of this and say, hey, we have noticed that this thing works pretty well and start a conversation.
But I'm thinking of JPA, where you've got JPA and hibernate, and you may as well just choose hibernate. Why bother with JPA? Because you're already in JPA environment. Why bother?
Yeah, but because if you have the spec, then you can have several implementations. I mean that the thing started with Hibernate. We have JPA, and after Hibernate, it comes OpenJPA and Eclipse Lib, which at the end Eclipse Lib is the reference implementation. It's not Hibernate anymore, and it's just for the ecosystem, for the safety of the ecosystem, for the freedom of the ecosystem. Because Eclipse Lib, it's an Eclipse license, which might have some problem. But then if you want, you can have an Apache which is OpenJPA. So it's just for the freedom of. One of the things that also it's improving, and it's like low-level details, is that the TCKs. TCKs is that you can see that it's the contract that all the application servers must follow to be certified. So it's like thousands of JUnit tests that they run against your server, and if all of them passes, then you're good, you're certified.
So this has to evolve with backward compatibility, obviously.
Yeah.
This has to evolve with backward compatibility in the same way it's going to be the new JDE.
Yeah, yeah, but the idea is not. I mean, the idea is like having like an under process.
Yeah.
Just to play, and also is that the application server says, and we are Microprofile certified as well. Okay. It's something like this. It's not breaking. It's like an addition or joining synergies for making the things work together. And what I mentioned about TCKs is that TCKs are proprietary. So if you are Apache TomEE, which is an open source project, and you want to be JavaE 7 certified, you need to pay. If not, you don't have the TCKs, except for Beam validations and CDI, which are, I know that it's ugly that I say that, but these both specs are managed by Red Hat guys, and when they started, they decided that the TCKs are going to be open source as well. So the funny thing is that, for example, Apache TomEE 7, which is the JavaE 7 version of TomEE, you have partial certifications. You're JavaE 6 certified, JavaE 7 compliant. Because you're gonna buy the TCK. Or you can, but there is some legal thing, things are tolerable.
It's a strange that a developer should care about it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we know we can do many things in different ways without necessarily this big brother or certification.
Yeah, exactly. And here is that the idea that you have, there are TCKs, the TCK is going to be open source. Just TCKs, it's like, I know that it not implies you as a developer, but maybe if you're, as I said, TCK are thousands of tests. And that means that if you're certified, at least you know that the application server that you have chosen has passed a lot of tests, which is always,
But you've still got container management systems having.
Yeah, there is, if you want to be full profile, even Corva is a part of the spec.
Well, it works fine for it.
Yeah. So that if you want to be full profile certified, you need to provide a Corva solution, for example. But this is something, this is all these things that probably most of you are saying, but they are telling me now about certification to TCK and so on. This is something that want to be avoided. All these papers and all these things that happen, this is something that Microprofile want to avoid. And if you want to join any GCP, it's also a headache. It's really complicated that someone can go to the JavaE and say, this I would like to be in that way, not in that other way. At least for a forum or somewhere, it's really difficult. And with Microprofile, I think that this is something that it's like, let's see what doesn't work in JavaE, and let's create not a new one, but something where people feel more comfortable. Yep.
What is the relationship, let's say, between this community and, for example, the Spring framework, which offers Spring Cloud, Spring Boot, Spring...
Yeah. The idea is to just open to the wall. I mean that there is, I don't remember, I know that there is a milestone where the integration is going to be in the sense of talking with other services, like Spring Boot, like Vertex, like Node.js. We are open. I mean that it's something that we are open, and we want to see how this could be, done together in somehow. But yes, usually there is no deep details. What I would say is that if you see all the leader, I mean that the leader of TomEE, the leader of IBM, the leader of Wi-Fi Swarm, at least these three are friends with Joshua Long, which is the evangelist of Spring Boot. I mean, they're friends, and so I mean that, and we talk, and I mean that it's not a problem of conflict of interest or something like this. I'm sure that there are going to be integrations with these things as well. So.
You said the Microprofile will be only one every 2 months.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit hard to follow this short living specs because, well, I start a project, I start something, and be, let's say, 1.2 compatible or whatever is the name. But if my project is not like for a year or something like that, I will be out of money. It's really sure.
Yeah, it's true. This is true. But the idea behind Microprofile as well is that the world is changing so fast. So you need to react so fast as well. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not following a Spring. Maybe someone can give some point. But I think that there is new major version of a Spring like once per year, maybe. I don't know. I don't follow. I mean, that I'm just asking. But it's like I mean that with a Spring, you don't have no worries about when they are releasing something. At the end, they are one company, and they are doing whatever they think that it's best for developers, and they're doing, and they're releasing what they think they can. And this or it's going to be archived with Microprofile is exactly the same. Just be able to release when we know that it's something that will improve developers. Yeah, it's something that, at the end, for now, I would say that wait until Microprofile 1.2, which is probably will be more full future of things that it's interesting for microservices. Because at the end now, it's something that you can do it. I mean, I'll show you that you can do it just every. Also, what I'll say is that if you want to use JavaEE and Microprofile, and you are worried about these updated, I would say that just take Wi-Fi Swarm, which you have a lot of things, or even Liberty, but I don't know which features it gives you in Liberty, so I will say Wi-Fi Swarm for this reason. Or Payara, depending on, I mean, that if you feel more comfortable in Glassfish, or you feel more comfortable in Wildfly, and then, I mean that because with Wi-Fi Swarm, you're going to have a lot of things that is going to be a part of the standard in the future. So. Yeah. Also, in the case of Microprofile, there is some of the major product owners are from Red Hat managers. And so, for the reason I said that Wi-Fi Swarm could be a good option for them. I mean that something that is in Wi-Fi Swarm in the future is going to be in the Microprofile. Well, we're here, so if there is any question.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.